Hands up if you're nervous. Okay. Yes, my name is Patrick. My friends call me Paddy, some of them anyway. And I play the guitar. Apologies for that. I come from a Catholic family. Both my parents, devout Catholics. My father was in seminary for years. My mother was a religion teacher. We attended Sunday Mass. We prayed the rosary together sometimes. We went to the Out Holy Hour, your usual stuff. But it didn't connect with me on a personal level. My faith meant very little to me. I enjoyed serving at Mass, and occasionally you'd get brought in for a nice confirmation or something. You get to hold the bishop's staff, and that was always fun. But otherwise, I didn't really care. In my early school years, I noticed from the beginning, back when I was a wee baba, that I was a bit different to my classmates. I wasn't great socially, and I wasn't really one of the cool kids. And them cool kids would try and bring me down, and they would bully me. And I quickly decided I didn't want to be like them. And because my classmates would bring me down, I tried to look for ways to protect myself from them. And I did this primarily with my intelligence. I was always the smartest kid, and I would use that to my advantage to set myself apart and to elevate myself above my peers. This was like a preemptive defense. It was all I could do to lessen the effects of whatever bullying I was experiencing. And my identity became largely built upon my intelligence and my belief that I was the smartest, and I would do anything that would lend itself to this ideal. Now, my faith very quickly became a tool for showcasing this intelligence and for distancing myself from people. I would frequently discuss my faith in class, even though I didn't really care for it, which would always lead to arguments and discussions in which I would use my intellect to beat my peers. This again was a way to protect myself from them and to feel better than them. I abused my faith so that I could feel better than those around me, because it made it impossible for them to bring me down. I did what I felt I needed to do, and it felt like the only way to protect myself was to sell out my faith. It also made me feel like I was above my classmates on a moral level, but in a classroom where nobody practices, that's a very low bar. It's like walking into a junior infants class and being proud of yourself for writing your name, It was easy to think that I was doing well. Simply by going to Mass, I felt like I was doing better than everyone else around me. And this removed any incentive for me to connect with my faith and grow in it. So my faith was entirely fueled by pride, arrogance, and a fear of those around me. I practiced my faith for all the wrong reasons, and it was entirely self-serving. Now, the consequences of this self-serving faith was that any part of it that didn't directly help me was ignored. So I pretty much ignored my faith on a moral level. My faith was never in my heart, so it never fed my will, which inevitably leads to bad habits. Hello, pornography. As well as swearing, stealing, compulsive lying, manipulation, arrogance, pride, all these terrible things. As far as I was concerned, if I could get away with something, then it was all right, and I got away with a lot. God played absolutely no part in my decision-making. Now comes my conversion. About time. In 2013, the Franciscan Sisters of the Renewal moved to my hometown, and seeing as my parents were active, churchy people, they quickly became friendly with them, and they informed my parents of a summer camp which was taking place that summer. It was called Camp Veritas, which of course my mother forced me to attend, as mothers do, very manipulative. But it was a week-long camp with sports, games, daily mass and adoration. But most importantly for me, there were other young people there who were practicing their faith. Now, the effects these young people had on me. For years I'd used my faith to make me feel better than my peers. But now I was challenged in the fact that there were young people who were holier than me, which was a previously unheard of concept. So one of the legs which I'd previously built my personality upon had just been shattered, and I could no longer pretend that I was satisfying the requirements of what little faith I had. The other way these people affected me was with their joy. There was a pure happiness there which I'd never experienced before. You could almost feel it. A joy which they had through Jesus. They knew Jesus. And if I wanted that joy, then I needed Jesus too. All I wanted was happiness, so even though the faith that I was now seeking was still entirely for me, it was a step in the right direction. This conversion primarily changed my attitude and the perception I had towards my faith. If I wanted to know Jesus, then I would have to first pay attention at Mass and properly engage with prayer, which was easier said than done, but I was now entering with a positive mindset. This conversion also gave me the challenge of changing my sinful nature, primarily my pornography addiction. If I wanted to take this faith seriously, then I had to change. And if I wanted to find the happiness that I saw in the people at that retreat, then I would have to make a serious commitment to overcoming sin. And I'd never made a serious commitment before, so this was kind of scary. I quickly learned that the first step to overcoming sin is a good confession. I'm scared of confession. Still am. It's not nice. And this newfound faith compounded that fear. It was terrifying to realize that I was living a sinful life. Like, it was something I'd never thought of before, and then suddenly this realization hit me. You need to change. And also with pornography came an intense amount of shame, which furthered my fear of confession. When I was 14, I attended a week-long faith camp down in Cork called Knockadoon. It was a week for young teenage boys, and there was a large emphasis on confession and the importance of a good, honest confession and how that confession could unite us to God and help us to grow in our faith. The fear associated with confession was also discussed at length, all with the goal of helping us towards a good, solid confession at the end of the week. So the week culminated in a reconciliation service, and with much fear and trepidation, I sauntered over to the confessional and made a good, honest confession for the first time ever, which was an important step. But alas, that would not be the end of pornography. After several years of struggle, I resolved to never receive communion when I was not in a state of grace, which happened a lot more than I'd care to admit. It's that time again. But, that's how it is. And I'd often go months at a time without receiving communion. I remember a couple of years ago we got a new priest in the parish, and it was like a year and a half before I got communion from him. It wasn't a good time. But this provided a further incentive to receive regular confession. And after years of struggling with that, confessions have finally become a part of my regular prayer life. So with that, God had taught me the first step in overcoming sin. Step 2, prayer. So, initially with my faith, I never had any notion of relying on God. My whole life, I'd always been the one to sort out my own problems. When I was getting bullied, I fixed that. When I had no friends, I fixed that. When I had no self-confidence, I fixed that too. But pornography was something I couldn't fix. I had to turn to God, but I did not know how, because I'd never turned to anyone before, because I never had to turn to anyone before. And as I was making no progress, I finally started praying about it, which helped. But what didn't help was the fact that I was too lazy to pray, and I had horrific discipline. So maintaining a prayer life just was not going to happen. And as these flaws revealed themselves to me, I slowly began to realize just how weak I was and how much I needed God. Without him, I was helpless, and it was only after much failure that I was ready to admit this to myself. God was able to use my failure to give me the humility to accept that I needed him. But so remains my laziness. How do I overcome this? I quickly came to realize that I wouldn't be able to establish the habits essential for my growth without a structure and a group of people to keep me accountable. Once a week, a youth group wasn't enough because I was falling on the daily. I needed help constantly. I needed a community. I needed Holy Family missions. After years of struggle while making very little progress, I heard about Holy Family missions from a friend, and then from some more friends, and a couple more. And everyone that told me about it had nothing but good things to say. I've seen this place change many people's lives. And everything I heard appealed to me, and I could just tell that this was exactly what I needed to conquer my vices and to progress in my faith. There was community life, there was scheduled prayer. Everything I needed was contained there. So I applied as soon as I was old enough, and here I am. And coming here, I feel like I've finally started making progress. For the first time in 6 years, it feels like. In the beginning, the thing which had helped me most was the example of those around me, and now I have that on a full-time basis. A fraternity whom I can trust and lean upon in my struggles, and the phenomenal example of what prayer can really be and how to fully let God encompass your life. Our studies have fueled my love of the Lord and helped me see his wonder and all that he has done for me. And I now have a desire to pray, a desire that is able to overcome my laziness. And I was able to see that when I went home, and I actually prayed when I was at home, which hadn't happened before. So that was a big step. And for the first time in 6 years, I've finally started to overcome pornography. And it hasn't been easy, but I've discovered that my issues extend well beyond my vices. So now I can stop focusing on one issue and focus on many. But I'm on the right path, a path towards freedom and hopefully a path towards heaven. Thank you for listening to my testimony, and thank you for all the support that you give to Holy Family Missions. This place changes people. It really does. So any continued support would be brilliant. Thank you very much.